Welcome to Conversations with HJM. I'm Lisa Harris-Jones.
And I'm Tommy Tompsett.
And today we have Attorney General Doug Gansler. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Just give us a little oversight on why you're running for governor.
Well, I did 23 years in government, and I've been out of government now for a few years, and I realized actually during COVID when I was walking along one day with my dog that I really love helping people. It's in my DNA, it's what I do, it's what I want to do, it's what is my currency. And so I looked at the race and I saw that there's an opportunity after 8 years of a Republican running our state that we actually needed a Democrat that could win and a Democrat that has a record of progressive and practical values of getting things done. So I started to talk to a lot of people around the state, and there was a real urgency for me to get in the race as somebody who can win both the primary and the general election and effectuate positive change. And I think that's what makes me different than the other candidates. They're all wonderful people, but we need to have somebody who's actually done something for Maryland. It's not time to experiment coming out of COVID. We need someone with actual experience in leadership and accomplishment, and that's what I'm doing.
Thanks, and I want to turn to your actual background. So you were our Attorney General, so you have probably the best resume when it comes to crime and law enforcement issues. Maryland's trying to be progressive in this arena. We're trying to come up with better policing strategies, better ways to handle the criminal justice system, and actually curb people actually entering that system. How can we make more progress under Doug Gansler?
Well, I think you're right. I mean, I am the only person in the race actually on either side that's been involved in the criminal justice system, and probably the only one that knows the difference between a conviction and an indictment. And so as a federal prosecutor, as the state's attorney, as the attorney general, I've been a leader on police reform since back in 1989, when I was the head of the NAACP Criminal Justice Committee in Montgomery County. And when I was state's attorney in Montgomery County, we took every police shooting and put it before the grand jury. We didn't whitewash those cases. We let people from the community decide whether that was a reasonable shooting or whether it was not. We put in community prosecution. So I think diversity is key going forward. I have credibility in the criminal justice area as we go forward. I put in the first domestic violence dockets ever in the state's history, and I want to do that in every jurisdiction in the state. We put the Family Justice Center in Montgomery County, which has been a huge success. We want to put that in every jurisdiction in the state. We want to make sure that we have 2 years required for someone to become a police officer, that they go to community college to get an associate's degree in public safety.
So we've had a long year and a half with COVID-19. How would you, as governor, bridge that gap between those that need workforce, that could use help in workforce development, and the business community? The business community has suffered a lot.
So in terms of economic development and coming out of COVID, yes, the distinctions between the haves and the have-nots is now much more sort of in people's focus, but it's actually been there for quite a long time. The inequities that we see in public health, in law enforcement, in housing, in jobs has been there this whole time, just a lot of people didn't notice until now. But it does, however, give us an opportunity to rebuild with that in mind. As we rebuild our state, as we rebuild our economy, we need to make sure that we do things like have reentry for folks coming out of jail that haven't been in there in the past, to have underserved communities be able to have access to jobs, have child care for everybody. You talked about the haves and the have-nots. One of the have-nots was that almost 50%, almost half the women in this country lost their jobs or changed their jobs because of child care issues. And not just women, but families, but mostly women. And we need to make sure that we think boldly and have child care available for every person that wants to work in our state. So there's a real opportunity coming out, and we need to focus, as we do so, on building the economy, but also on bridging those inequity gaps and making sure that we tap the talents of everybody in the state of Maryland, regardless of what they look like, regardless of where they live. And we need to bring back the urban, the rural, the suburban, inner cities, every part of Maryland we need to bring back as we come out of COVID.
And before COVID, probably one of the most talked about threats to humanity was, and still is climate change. And so we're in Ocean City. We hear that we're going to move to turbines and alternative forms of energy to get away from our fossil fuel dependence. Do you see more opportunity in places like Ocean City or Western Maryland for such technology? I
do, and so I was the environmental attorney general. I actually ran the environmental group for the entire country there, and when I was the attorney general, it was my number one focus on cleaning up the Chesapeake Bay, starting with the climate change issues, getting the green economy going, bringing jobs to Maryland. And we need to make sure that we create the infrastructure in Maryland to support the influx of electric vehicles. That this is something that's literally and figuratively been driven by the private sector. They're going to be moving toward electric vehicles and weaning themselves off of fossil fuel, but we need to make sure in Maryland that we can support that. And so there's a lot that we can do on climate change. It's piece by piece. There's not one sort of silver bullet, but I'm the person that has the experience in doing it, and I'll do it again.
Well, I don't want to keep you. We're Mako. I know you have a lot of hands to shake, a lot of people to see, but we want to thank you for stopping past and talking to us.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we want to thank you for joining us with Conversations with HJM.